very few turbo diesel crossovers that we have in our long-term fleet is getting ready to leave, and that is the Kia Sportage 1.7 Ignite Plus. And the person who's been driving that is Ian McLaren. Ian, the Ignite Plus is a very oddly placed crossover in its range. You want to tell us more about it?
Yeah, so what Kia did when they launched the new Sportage has always been popular in South African market. They launched the Sportage after Hyundai brought in the Tucson, the new Tucson. And the range of Sportages was a little bit odd in that it only had an entry-level Ignite spec, and then it had a vastly more expensive spec above that. So there was quite a glaring gap in the middle, and I think that's part of the reason why they lost a few sales to Tucson. So with Ignite Plus, they added a little bit of spec. On the exterior, they gave it some bigger wheels. They added standard fog lights, which rounds the quite distinctive grille off nicely. Yeah, and it slotted in quite nicely, and I have to say, before we even start, it's been one of my favorite long-termers today.
We're going to touch on this later, but interestingly enough, this is only available with a 6-speed manual. So
yeah, it was a strange spec. So this is the 1.7 diesel engine, and for some reason, even in the Hyundai when we had it, it's only available with a manual gearbox. And I know it's very unfashionable to have a manual gearbox these days, but again, like, the manual gearbox in this engine with 280 Newton meters, and it's available at 1,250 RPM. That manual gearbox is so slick and precise. You can short shift it so easygoing. It just adds to the easygoing nature of the car, and I really enjoyed it.
Okay, so we know this is a basic spec, so I think the next thing we should do is go inside and take a look at what you've been surrounded by for the past year.
For sure.
First thing I can say is that compared to everything we've had in our long-term fleet and on test, seeing a cabin this simple, let's say, is kind of refreshing.
Yeah, I actually quite like it. So there's one or two things that I did miss, but then after spending a bit of time with the car, and obviously 20,000 Ks, I come to realize that there's a certain charm to this back to basics kind of Ignite Plus spec. So to start with, what I didn't like a plastic steering wheel, especially at this price point. I think when there's city cars like VW Ups that come with leather steering wheels, a plastic steering wheel for me, just as your point of touch for the car, I think it cheapens the experience a little bit more than it needed to be. But that said, the infotainment system, I don't know if you can call it an infotainment system. The radio and that's very old school. I think it's probably lifted off the previous range, but actually it did everything that I needed it to do. Bluetooth wise, it didn't tell me who was calling, which made it difficult to screen my calls when Steve or Terence phoned. But I got used to that, memorized their numbers. And then it doesn't come with climate control, but these days, do you need climate control really? Like, you got 4 settings for the fan speed, which I was able to figure out. So manual aircon, and what I really did appreciate, having small children in the back, the Sportage range comes with air vents for the rear passengers, and obviously ISOFIX anchorage points. So it covers all the bases without being flash.
So we know you got 2 very young kids, and this has the cloth interior and very basic materials, hard plastics. Has it been very easy to keep clean?
Yeah, so my kids don't ever make a mess. They're the only 2 kids I've ever met. They're quite exceptional. But on the odd occasion, pretty much every time they're in the car, they've messed. It's been trickier than obviously with leather. Leather be easier to clean, but the cloth seats are really not a chore to clean them. Yeah, and they've got ample space there. The only thing is they kick the back of your chair, but again, that's easy enough to clean, so it hasn't been a problem. And then fortunately, the boot has also been ample in terms of carrying all of their bicycles and things.
Prams.
Yeah, no, not prams, but bicycles.
Oh, okay.
And things, yeah.
Fast, that's
Like I said, I think it's the long-termer that's suited my lifestyle at this time of my life perfectly. So it's the size-wise, it's been enough size space in the back for the kids. The boot's been ample. The ride's been comfortable. The drivetrain's easygoing, and I really like the back-to-basic spec. Everything works. I didn't miss anything except maybe the leather steering wheel. Maybe a rear-facing camera for a car this size might suit the market, but otherwise sensors are ample. Yeah, I think the Sportage, I don't think it's quite reached the heights that it did in the previous generation in terms of sales. I think Tucson's maybe overtaken it somewhat. So maybe the Sportage then becomes the kind of the dark horse underdog of the segment. But like I said to you, between Tucson and Sportage, these cars really show how far the Korean brands have come in a really short period of time. I couldn't recommend it more.